Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, I hope you hit the subscribe button. And for those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a little story of haunted Winnipeg. And I actually have a guest star today, and it's going to be my mom. She's got some stories to tell you about some hauntings that she's experienced. So, let me just flip my camera. Hi Mom.
Hi.
So I just wanted you to tell my audience of 72, I think, or no, 70 something, a story about your ghost and Jackson. His name is Jackson, I believe.
Yes. All right. So basically, I was a teenager and, well, a young teenager, and we lived in a house, and there was this being that I was aware of. When I would go to bed at night, when I turn over in my sleep, I wake up to turn over. And so I would wake up, I'd be facing the door of my bedroom, and my doors were always closed because my brother's dog did not like me. But anyways, I would turn over in the door and I would see this male figure standing in the door. And it was a dark black figure. I could never see a face or anything. And I would just look at it and turn around and turn my back to it and go right back to sleep. And I would see this figure quite often. And there was times where this figure liked to play tricks on my dad. My dad would be watching TV, and the light switch was where he sat. It was above his head, and the lights would get turned on and off, and he, of course, would call for one of us kids, thinking it was me coming down and sneaking, or my brother, and none of us would answer, of course, and he'd go upstairs and check, and we were all sound asleep because that's what we were supposed to be doing. So he would often get upset because the lights, things would turn off and on, and doors would open and close that he didn't know things about. And so I began to call this being Jackson, and I was never afraid of him. I felt that he was there to protect me, and he was around for years until I got married. And once I married my husband, he disappeared. And I believe that he felt once I got married that I was safe and there was someone to protect me.
Now, when you say that he kind of was there since you were a teen, was it in just one house?
No, we lived in several houses because we rented. We didn't own our own places. And he was at other places. He just kind of seemed to be there and followed us. And as I said, he did silly things like turning lights on and things like that. Moving things, and I was never afraid of him, and I just thought it was just part of being natural that we often had these beings follow us. My parents, after I was married, my parents moved to a different house, and this is years later after I had you and your brother. We would go and visit the house and everything, and we basically had beings that followed my parents or our family. And there was one day that there was nobody sitting in the kitchen, and all of a sudden a plate came flying from the kitchen across through the kitchen all the way to through the dining room and hit the wall. And my mom got up and went to check the kitchen to see who the heck was throwing dishes. And there was nobody there. And her cupboard door was suddenly opened, and it had been closed before that. So she just thought nothing of it because these are things that happened over the years. And so, well, it was just part of the natural stuff. And there was one time that my uncle was over. He had come from the country to Winnipeg to go to the racetrack with my dad. And he was with a friend. And after the races, they came to the house, and of course they were talking and telling stories, and it was very late. And so my mom said to them, spend the night. It's too late for you to drive all the way home because they had to go to the country. So my uncle said okay, and his friend said okay. So my mom made the couches up for my uncle and his friend. And my mom and dad went to bed, and all of a sudden my mom could hear them, my uncle and this gentleman, moving around, and the door opening, and she heard the vehicle outside. And she went to check, and my uncle said to her, "I'm not spending another night in this house." He says, "It's haunted. There's a little girl in the closet." And she was staring at me, and my mom says, "What do you mean a little girl?" And he says, "Yeah, this little girl in this little white dress, and she was just standing there and staring at me." And my uncle was afraid of a lot of things, so my uncle refused to spend the night at my mom and dad's house after that because this girl was haunting the closet.
Oh, I never heard that one.
So those were some of the things.
Now, because we believe, like I believe as well, we all believe in ghosts. We know, spirits happen. I give respect to the Ouija board. I refuse to play with it. Now, I remember you telling me about a time when you also played with this Ouija board.
Yes, and I will never do it again. Even though it was a funny experience, it could have been disastrous. When I was in school, we used to have birthday parties with friends, and they would sometimes be sleepovers. So this one girl was having her birthday party, and it was a sleepover, and we all decided we were going to use the Ouija board, and we were going to call on a spirit, but we didn't want to call on anybody that might be dangerous and scary and want to kill us. So we were going to call on, and I believe it was a rock singer or somebody that we knew. I can't even remember who it was, but it was someone that we were pretty sure this is not going to be scary. This is a nice person, and if they come, that they're going to be friendly. And we were all sitting in the living room of her place, and we were all sitting around the Ouija board, and we had candles lit, and we were calling on this dead spirit, please come, and if you're here, give us a sign. And at that moment, the French doors in her living room flew open, and a pillow came across the living room and hit one of us in the head, and we all started screaming and running out of the room. And it was her father. He knew what we were doing, and he wanted to scare us, which he actually did, and it was really funny. And from that moment on, we swore we were never going to touch a Ouija board again. But it was so scary. But it ended up being funny. But at the moment when it happened, we didn't think it was funny. We thought it was scary, and we thought someone from the dead had actually come back to see us.
You're going to die now. So, have you heard of any other family members' hauntings, or?
I've been to Calgary, and at Heritage Park, there is a house there that is known to be haunted. Mm-hmm. And I've been to that house, and they say that there's a man that you see in the living room on the main floor by the windows usually. So of course I went to Heritage Park wanting to see this ghost because I wanted the experience, but of course never saw anything. But I had taken pictures of different rooms in the house, and when I came back home, I sent my films to get developed, and when they came back, I was looking through the pictures, and in one of the pictures in this little room, which was a child's room, there was the face of an older man in the room. And like, this room was empty because it was locked. You couldn't go inside the room. You could only look at it through the glass windows. And inside was this man. And at first I thought, oh, it's just my reflection. And but it wasn't my reflection. It was an older man, and he was wearing an ascot and an old white fancy shirt and a vest and
Yeah.
that, and I couldn't in any way, shape, or form figure out how this had happened. So I've got a picture of what I believe to be a ghost. Now,
I think I've seen that picture too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we've had different houses. My grandmother and my aunts and uncles have talked about different hauntings that they've had at different houses and different things happening, but there's way too many stories to remember.
I remember hearing one about, I think it was Auntie Lorraine, maybe, picking someone up on the highway, a little old lady.
There's that's Uncle Ellis. On the way from Poplar Point to Winnipeg, if you go down Highway 26, there's this little white church. And there's this little old woman. My Uncle Ellis saw this little old woman walking along the side of the road, and he picked her up, and she got into the back seat. He said, like, he asked where she lived, and she said just down the road. And he said, okay, like, it was really late at night, and he says, I'll drive you home. And she got into the back seat of the car, and he started to drive her home, and he was talking to her, and he said he didn't get an answer, and he turned and looked in the back seat, and she was gone.
Oh my gosh, I would have pooped myself. And so she just disappeared.
Just disappeared. Apparently she had been killed on that road, and I guess there's just a certain distance of space where she can be found. Just a certain...
Where her spirit probably is trapped. Interesting. See, now this is what I believe. Like, we have a lot of family stories that I've heard, and other family members have told us, because I know Rachel had told me about a story about her. I think it was one of her ex-boyfriends who passed away. He passed away on the highway during a winter storm, so he froze to death. So, like, there's a lot of stories I've heard from family members, and I believe in them. And so what I'm actually going to do with this series, Mama, is I'm actually going to do a whole bunch of different haunting stories here in Canada and Winnipeg. And so I wanted to start with my mama's story and something close to home. So there's also the Hamilton House here in Winnipeg on Henderson Highway. There is the haunting, and I think it is a woman who haunts the Lower Fort Garry Hotel, and there's other hauntings. So I just want to say thank you so very much, Mama.
You're welcome.
For being on my video. And it's Saturday. It's bingo night tonight. So I'm going to let her go so that we can get ready and she can play her bingo. So thanks everyone for hanging out. Peace.